friends. Are you ready to study the Bible? Good. Before we start, let's pray. Dear Jesus, please be with us as we study the Bible. Please come into our hearts and help us so we will understand the story for today. In Jesus' name, amen. Our story comes from Genesis chapter 11. We're going to be looking at the Tower of Babel. The word Babel means confusion. It had been several hundred years, since the flood. The earth had been repopulated. That means that people had babies and the babies grew up and had more babies. Lots of generations happened so that there were so many people all over the world. Shem lived a long time. He lived 500 years after the flood. And Noah lived another 350 years after the flood. We don't know for sure when this story happened, but it was probably at least 150 years after the flood. The people were becoming wicked. The line of Shem remained faithful to God. We don't know for sure which son of Noah these people were from that decided to build this tower. These people decided to build a tower in the plain of Shinar. They wanted to make a city so big and powerful, a monarchy, to show the world that they were better and bigger than God, and they could choose their own way of living. So they built this tower. They wanted it so high it would reach the sky, because they thought since they were choosing their own way, maybe God would try to destroy the world again, and they did not want to be swept away in a flood. They decided that they were going to build a tower high enough to reach the sky so that no water could cover them. They forgot that God had promised with the rainbow that he would never more cover the world with a flood. They had forgotten a lot of other things God said too. They had forgotten that God said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." They were worshiping images. They were praying to the idols to bring them the water they needed, and to bring them the children they wanted, and to give them the food. Can you imagine? The idols couldn't hear them. They couldn't do anything for them. They got so bad, they started even offering their children as sacrifices. If they saw something they wanted, they would steal it. They were breaking all of God's commandments. They were so wicked. God's people, the children of Shem, prayed earnestly that God would stop the tower building. They were crying and praying that God would stop them. And they warned their relatives. These were their cousins. And their nieces and their nephews. They warned them, "Please stop building this. Listen to God's warnings. You know you're doing wrong." But they refused to listen. They would not listen to what they were told. But God listened to those prayers of his faithful people. And God came down to see the tower. That means it wasn't very high up in the sky. It did it because God had to come down to see the tower. God said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language." And this they began to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So, as the people were building, suddenly, they couldn't understand each other. This man asked, "Please, bring me a hammer." And this guy comes and says, "Anasema nini? Je ne comprends pas." What are you trying to say? They could not understand each other. They were so frustrated, they decided they would stop building and go home. The angels of God had gone down to see the tower. They had stopped the building. Not only did they confuse the language, but they broke down the tower to show that God was not pleased with them, and it wasn't very strong. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't stronger than God. God knows how to punish those who do not obey him. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. So that's why we have so many languages today. That's why if you go from the United States all the way to, let's say, India, you can't really understand each other unless you've both been to the school that teaches English. There's so many dialects and languages in India. That's one of the most diverse places for languages. It doesn't mean that you can't understand each other. There's people who know many languages. There's people who are translators that can help you understand. But not everyone can understand each other. There's people who have only heard English all their life, or have only heard Nandi all their life, or have only heard Tagalog all their life, and cannot understand someone from other places. God designed this so that the sins would not be spread around so fast, and so that they would realize that God is in control. You cannot try to follow your own way. The only way of happiness is to keep the commandments of God. Here are they that keep the commandments and the faith of Jesus. Here are they that keep the commandments and the faith of Jesus. Aquí están los que guardan los mandamientos y la fe de Jesús. Aquí están los que guardan los mandamientos y la fe de Jesús. There are several lessons we can learn from this story. One of them is that we cannot try to do things on our own. We cannot try to go away from God's plan and expect to be happy. Another lesson is that Shem could not talk to his relatives anymore who were returning to disobey God. He could not warn them anymore. This shows us that sometimes you need to go apart from those who don't obey God, and so that you do not pick up on some of their practices, that you are able to keep the commandments better. Something interesting is that the descendants of those who built the tower, they tried to build up that city again, and it became the city of Nineveh. It grew and it grew and it grew until it took 3 days to walk through it. And if you look on one of our other videos, you can watch the story of Jonah, the prophet. Another thing we can learn about this story is God's character. God did not destroy them immediately. He allowed them to get to a point where their sin was so awful. It was oppressive. It was violent. And it was brutal. They were so awful that God said, that's enough. I draw the line now. God is so merciful. He waits until there's no more hope. God delayed the judgment so the people could reveal their character. If God destroyed them right away, Shem's family might have said, hey now, that wasn't fair. They weren't that bad. But God allowed them to show how awful they were, to show that he was right. and he was faithful to do what he had said he would do. As we look at the stories of the Bible, we can learn more about God and that his way is the right way. We want Jesus in our hearts today so that we can know how to obey him. We want to keep his commandments. Let's ask Jesus into our hearts and to help us keep the commandments. Into my heart, come into my heart, Lord Jesus, come in today, come in to stay, come into my heart, Lord Jesus, amen. Did you like our story? Please subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.